Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare at bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, welcome everybody. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Judy Yoblick and I'm a member of this synagogue. I am a child of Holocaust survivors. My parents lived in Hungary, and my father was taken by the Hungarians in the Hungarian forced labor camp. And my mother and my brother, who was 3 years old at the time, were living in Budapest, Hungary. My mother was taken away 6 times, carried away by the Nazis, and each time she was able to escape. The reason she was able to escape is because she was very, very brave, obviously. And she also was Austrian, so she spoke German. And she didn't look Jewish. And she stood at the back of the line and took her Jewish star off, which was mandatory by all Jews to wear. And she stood at the back of the line, and eventually she was able to get away. I used to think she was away for just an hour or so, but my brother a few years ago informed me that no, sometimes she was gone for 2 weeks. And he was just a little boy, and he was left with Christian, trusted people that my mother could, trust him with and raise him if she didn't make it back. And eventually she did go back. My father was in the forced labor camp, eventually went to Russia, and he was there for 5 years. And one day when the war was almost over, a lady read my mother's tea leaves. And she said to her to go back to the apartment where they used to live because my father's going to be coming home looking for her and my brother. So she did, and in December he came home. And 9 months later, here I am. So I'm proof of my parents' survival. So they truly were very, very brave. So when things are down, I remind myself, my parents survived, I can survive this. So welcome everybody. And I'd like to recognize our distinguished members from our council. I hope I pronounce your names correctly. Please stand up as I call your name. Nancy Pinkin, she's Assemblywoman. Spana Shah, Council Member for Edison. Robert Karabenchik, Council President. Alvaro Gomez, Council Member. Sam Khan, Dr. David Verbitsky, and Michael Lombardi, Councilman. And I hope I got everybody. So welcome, and at this time, I'm going to ask the children from our Hebrew school, Rachel Weber, Isabel and Emily Heller, Joshua Shapiro, and not anymore in Hebrew school, but a former Hebrew school member, Brian Katz, Natalie, and Liz Raymond. So come on up.
Okay, these are all poems from this book edited by Rabbi. It was What the Holocaust Means to Me, Teenagers Speak Out. So these are all poems that teenagers wrote regarding the Holocaust.
As the new day comes and as the sun arises, I dream that a ray of sunlight succumbs to the deep dark world of demises.
Listen to the wind. Can you hear the cries of all those who have sinned, of all those who have lied?
We have stripped away their lives. Can't you hear them screaming? We are telling their tales of demise, but they know it's not of them that we are dreaming.
We refuse to hear them, all just busy with our lives, with ourselves. We have to stop and listen, or we'll repeat their tales once again.
Memories. I remember school, I remember shul, I remember all the things I used to do. I remember Mom, I remember Dad, I remember when it was not so bad. Now I'm stuck here all alone, no one to see, no one to play with, no one to dry my tears. The day will come when I will return home and all of this will just be a memory.
Life in the ghetto. Life in the ghetto. I want to be free. I want to explore. Life in the ghetto is such a bore. Do some work, stay away from the gate, and especially from those who look at you with hate. They can turn you in, eat you alive. Can life be any worse in this great dive? Look strong, tough, then you will live. Strength and toughness is one of God's greatest gifts.
A life never lived. I am a child of 3, but not for long, because soon the Jews will be forever gone. My mom, my dad, and siblings too. I can never say I really knew how to play, to joke, to laugh, to sing. These finer things my life will not bring. A flower, a bird, a book, a ball, I will never know what these are at all. The only life I will ever know is the one life I must let go.
I Must Go On by Dara J. Iserson. The bells are clanging, the children are hanging. This is their definition of fun, but I must go on. They burnt down my house, took my possessions, terrorized and tortured my friends. For this, I must go on. Stripped of my dignity, with a broken heart, they spit in my face. In spite of all this, I must go on. To do what God intended me to do, to speak of this hell, and to avenge the death of my family. For this, I know I will go on.
Hate by Lisa Gottsman. Millions brutally gassed and killed. No motive but hate. Families torn apart. Children orphaned and without siblings. Parents watch their children die before their eyes. No reason but hate. Why hate for no reason? Because we were Jews that were enough reason for them. That hatred was so strong, it killed 6 million of our people. Now we still have discrimination, stereotypes, prejudices, and assimilation. All aspects of hate. So we must always remember, don't forget the hate.
Thank you. That was very nicely done. Okay, now Alan Cooper is going to lead us with some songs or sing solo.
Going to start off with a song called Eli, Eli. You may know it. It was written by a poet called Hannah Senesh. If you've heard of Hannah Senesh, you will know that she was a Hungarian Jewess. She emigrated to Palestine in the 1930s and then volunteered to be dropped behind enemy lines in Europe to fight the Nazis, and in fact was captured by the Nazis and tortured and killed. But while she was alive, during her short life, she wrote poetry and songs. You may know this. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. Hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, Berak hashamayim tfilat ha'adam. O Lord, my God, I pray these things never end, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man. So let's sing it together this time. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, shachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. This next song should remember that, terrible though, the Shoah was not a time when there was no resistance. We didn't go like lambs to the slaughter, as the propaganda would have it. There were partisan groups. There was the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And this next song in particular, Zotnik Kein, it's a song written in Yiddish by Hirsch Glick. He wrote it in 1943. He lived in the Vilna Ghetto. He was killed in 1944 at the age of 22. But he was so inspired by the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising that he wrote this song. And very quickly, I will run through a translation of it. It's, never say that this is the end of the road. Wherever a drop of our blood fell, there our courage will grow anew. This song, written in blood, was sung by a people fighting for life and freedom. Our triumph will come, and our resounding footsteps will proclaim, we are here. It goes on, but you'll hear that this song was written without blood, not with lead. It's not a song that summer birds sing overhead. It was a people amidst burning barricades that sang this song of ours with pistols and grenades. So never say that this is the end of the road. The darkened skies now conceal the blue of day, because the hour for which we've hungered is so near. Beneath our feet, the earth shall thunder. We are here. Now, this is going to be a particular challenge for me because I've never actually performed this in Yiddish so far. Who here speaks Yiddish? Who understands Yiddish? Oh, not too many of you. Okay, so if I screw it up, you're not even going to know. Mit kein Mal, als du gehst den letzten Weg, Himmeln bleine verstellen, bläue Tag, kommen wird noch unser geäußergente Schuh. Es wird a Point und unser Trott, wir sehnen do. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird a Point und unser Trott, wir sehnen do. Von grünem Palmenland bis Land von weißem Schnee. Wir kommen und mit unser Pein, mit unser Weih. Und wo gefallen ist a Spritz von unser Blut. Spritzen Wett auf unsere Tore, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist, Spritz von unser Blut. Spritzen Wett auf unsere Tore, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgen zum Bagilden uns dem Heind. Und der nächsten Welt verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur euch was zusammen wie die Sonne in den Kajor. Wie a Parol soll gehen das Lied zu do. Nur euch zusammen wird die Sonne in den Kajor. Wie a Parol soll gehen das Lied von do zu do. Geschrieben ist das Lied mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Liedl von a Vogel auf der Frei. Das hat a Vogt zwischen Fallendike Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hand. Das hat a Vogt zwischen Fallendike Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hand. Sag nicht dort die kein Wort, als zu geht's den letzten Weg. Im Leben bleine verstellen bläue Tee. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkter Schuh. Es wird a Pointer und se trott mit seinen Do. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkter Schuh. Es wird a Pointer und se trott mit seinen Do.
Thank you, Alan. That was really nice.
Okay, let's just put this out of the way.
Yeah. Okay, and now from our keynote speaker that you've all been waiting for, Rabbi Dr. Bernhard Rosenberg.
I want to thank everyone for coming. We have a very nice, large crowd. This is Congregation Beth-El for you in TV land. And I want to thank Judy Oblick, who has truly gone out of her way to do a beautiful job tonight. Whenever I call upon her, she's a lady, an Ashes Chayil, a woman of valor, never says no, and does a fantastic job. And I want to thank Gali, who's back there, who donated the refreshments. And wait till you see what you're going to be getting. You'll love it. And she's fantastic as a baker and as a cook. So please stay afterwards. And to the entertainers that are here that are doing this as a favor to the family and to me, we thank you so much for your graciousness. And to the political representatives that we have here, we're deeply honored that you are here with us. I helped you get elected, and that's why you're here. I've already given some of them a tour. This is the president of the council. This is our new assembly woman. And I gave them a tour of our building. For those of you in TV land, I have half of a synagogue to rent, and I've been working on it. Anyone who wants to rent facilities, please call us here at Congregation Beth-El, 732-572-2766. I'll give you a deal like you never saw in your life. Tonight, I want to share with you some things that I have taught for the last 40 years. As we, the second generation, people such as Judy Oblick and myself, we're also running out of time. Most of the Holocaust survivors are already gone. And here are some questions that have been asked, and I'm going to try to answer them for you. The readings, by the way, that our young people did came from my first Holocaust class at the Moshe Aaron Yeshiva High School. And I put it into a book. They were, at that time, 16 and 17 years old. And if you'll take a look, one of them's name is Ilana Rosenberg. So you can figure out how long ago that was. So, question number one. Why didn't the Jews get the hell out of Europe, especially Germany? And you ask the same question today with what's going on in Europe, with Russia wanting to take over an entire country. Why don't they get the hell out of there? Why are they there? Well, there are many answers. One is they had nowhere to go. Those that had money and wanted to get out were able to get out very early. Those who had no money were not able to get out. And after all, no country wants to take you. America had quotas, Canada had quotas, everyone had quotas, and most of Europe was already being overrun. Where were you going to go? But here's the other thing which people don't understand. See, Europe and the places where, in many cases, your parents or grandparents came from, were these little shtetls of 3,000 to 5,000 people. Little Highland Parks, right? Edison already is a big city compared to that. And they lived a religious life, many of them, but they didn't have the internet. They didn't know what was going on in the world. So they had no idea truly what was happening. So many Holocaust survivors have told me it was like a tsunami. All of a sudden, the Nazis come in, they take over, and it's done, just like a tsunami. The other thing that you need to understand is during those days, anti-Semitism was rampant, not unlike today in Europe. And even in America, half of the American population, through statistical analysis, was anti-Semitic, at least in feelings. Also, who would believe that Hitler, who looked like a comedian, the little mustache, who in the world would think that he would be strong enough to mesmerize an entire country and to kill and be responsible for the death of so many people? After my parents had died, this is the anniversary 30th of my father's death and 20th of my mother's, which is why I wanted to have this event tonight. Only then did I have enough common sense to start searching the history of my family and asking questions. But it was too late. My parents were already dead. And you know, when you think back, the obvious question is, so, you know, you're 15, 16 years old. Why don't you ask your parents who your grandparents were? Why didn't you ask anything? And the answer is, for those of you who have had this experience, when you started talking about the Holocaust, they started crying. I remember my mother at an event like this, like it was yesterday. She almost fainted. She looked twice her age because she worked in a camp called Skarzysko, which is where people made bombs for the Nazis. And the lye and the chemicals that were there basically went through the skin. So she always looked old. Many of you remember her being part of this congregation. My father of blessed memory was in Auschwitz, had the number on his arm. And every time I would look at it, I said to myself, who could possibly do this to a human being? And he always had one particular saying which was interesting. He always said, you see these numbers? He would say, how old do you think I am? And people would give an age, and he said, no, subtract 5 years, because for 5 years I didn't live. And he was in Auschwitz. But why didn't I ask? Didn't ask because I was a kid. I didn't ask for the same reason that our teenagers and young kids here don't ask their parents about grandparents that are not alive anymore. They want to live their lives, and they don't want to ask. Talking about Yiddish, my parents didn't drive. My parents didn't have much money at the beginning. My father was given $13 by Hias to come to America. That's all he had. And I remember being about 9 or 10 years old, and most of the Grina, they called the Europeans Grina, on a Saturday night would play cards. That was the big happiness that they had. My parents didn't play cards, but they got together and socialized with the rest of the Grina. And I was sitting in the other room because they had to schlep me everywhere, being an only child. And so wherever they went, I had to go. And I hear a conversation because there were some people visiting from Israel, and it was in Yiddish, and I do speak Yiddish. Something about a former wife with children. And I heard it, and I never asked. And then my daughter, Yelet, went to Poland, and she calls me at 4:30 in the morning. Hi, Dad, I'm at Auschwitz. That's an interesting phone call at 4:30 in the morning. So I decided I would ask my cousin, who was still alive. She was 90. So I asked her, can you tell me, was my father married before the war? Yeah. Did he have children? I heard something about a child. She said, yes, a child. There were 2. Both his wife and the 2 children were massacred by the Nazis. Then she tells me, by the way, your grandfather, who I'm named after, she saw him shot by the Nazis. Body was on the floor. They picked him up and threw him in a truck. So now, all these years later, I search if there are any other relatives in this entire world, and I haven't found them, except for my own family. And I have looked everywhere. Next question is, what's my relationship with God? How in the world did I become a rabbi? Why? If anything, I should have become a hater of humanity and of God. But I went into religion for only one reason: humanity. Had nothing to do with my being religious. So some of you who think I'm a little bit liberal sometimes, it's because I'm here for you to be your rabbi, not to be judgmental. I became religious on my own. That's my business. I walk here. I have 4 herniated discs. I'm in pain. My wife basically holds me up getting here at this point. That's my religious part. My rabbi part is I'm here for all of you for whatever you need. So what did I do with God? Well, there were 2 possibilities. One, I said, this can't be the fault of God. No God would kill all these people, 1.5 million children, including my 2 siblings. What God could do this? So, in my mind, I said, I'll blame humanity. But I have a problem. I believe in the Bible. And in the Bible, there's a section called the Tochacha, the warning section, which we did a few days ago, a few weeks ago. And it tells you exactly what's going to happen to the Jewish people if they do not observe the laws of God. And it's the Holocaust right there. So when I asked my father, blessed memory, why in the world did you allow me, an only child, to come to New York and become a rabbi? He answered, well, the night before I was liberated from Auschwitz, I had a dream. My father came back to me and said, tomorrow you will be liberated. And he was liberated. He was 65 pounds. 65 pounds. And then he also said to me, he wasn't religious at this point. I became more and more observant, brought them back. They weren't keeping kosher, brought them back. They weren't going to the synagogue, brought them back. And then he said, you know, the Bible predicts the Holocaust. It's there. And this is from someone, and my mom, who came from Hasidic backgrounds, very religious backgrounds. I made one promise to my parents. Their biggest concern was that I wasn't going to get married. I was single for quite a bit of time. The reason being I was conquering the world, and in the little towns that I had synagogues in, I could date basically 2 cows and 3 horses. And some of the people that I dated probably looked that way. So it took a while. I found my gorgeous woman of valor. And the promise that I made to my parents is that one day I would fill up a truck. They have not been able to see it, unfortunately, but I have 4 children and 7 grandchildren, and hopefully more to come. One of my regrets in life is that I didn't find Charlene 10 years earlier, so my parents could feel that nachas. There's a issue going on now, which I discussed Shabbos. We have some non-Jewish people here that I think it's important for me to just say a little bit about. There's a YouTube, 3-minute long, put out for Jews by Jesus, about this Jew was there for you, or this Jew would have died there. What they basically have is a scene at Auschwitz, and the Nazis are saying go to the right and go to the left, and here's Jesus. And there's a whole uproar. The Christians are upset because the Jews for Jesus put it out. The Jews are upset because Jesus is in it. Everyone's upset at each other. So I decided to take a stand. Jesus was a Jew. He was an observant Jew. He lived and died a Jew. Very simple. Anti-Semitism in this world came about because of the hatred of the Jew. Jesus didn't do it. Jesus died around age 32. He was murdered by the Romans, Pontius Pilate. Thank God, not too long ago, there was a pope who decided we're going to tell the truth. The Jews did not kill Jesus. And hopefully things have gotten a little better since that time. But there's a whole uproar. And what's the uproar about? That how dare Jesus be involved with Jews? Now I want you to think about it. Jesus is a Jew. And if he would have been in Auschwitz, they would have killed him. So I make it very specific in the message that I do not support Jews for Jesus. But guess what? He was a Jew. And he died a Jew. And we need to know that. And I will conclude with the following. The world is in chaos. The world is in chaos. We worry about great things like, is the basketball owner going to be thrown out, which I think he has been, because he said the wrong things to this 20-year-old Mexican black woman? Why in the world he's telling her bad things about people of color is beyond me, and how she got it all on tape is interesting. That's important. But we can't find over 200 people that are in their graves somewhere in the ocean. It's not important that the Jewish mayor of a city where the Russians have now walked in has been wounded, and it is in Israel right this very moment fighting for his life. That's not important. It's not important that a boat carrying 200 plus children went under and those children died and the captain fled and got off the boat. That's not important. What's important are silly, idiotic things. The Holocaust taught us one thing: to see things the way they really are and to see things that are really important. I'll leave you with this thought. It's a kind of a interesting philosophy that I have. Whenever I have troubles, you know, we're trying to keep our synagogue alive, and thanks to this wonderful congregation, we are keeping it alive. It's a little congregation, never had money, wrong location. We're still here. I've been here 25 years. Many of you have been here longer. We're still here. We're not giving up. And you know what I say when I have big service, big problems? It's going to sound strange. I look at my father's image, and I look at my mother's image. I say, at least I'm not in Auschwitz. They got through Auschwitz, and we can get through anything.
Okay, I think it's time for something light now after Rabbi's speech, which was wonderful, and I can relate to many of the things from my parents who never spoke to me about it until my mother passed away. About 2-3 weeks before she passed away, that's when I learned most of the things that happened to them. Okay, so at this point, I would like to call up Marta, John, and Danny Martinez to entertain us.
The song I'm going to sing is A Blessing for the Sick, which you probably are all familiar with in Mishaberach, put to the music of Debbie Friedman. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Nayotenu Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. Let us say, Amen. And this next song is from a Broadway show, Fiddler on the Roof, of course. We're in Temple. Sunrise, Sunset.
And it's about, of course, the struggle of keeping tradition, and shows how families have definitely kept tradition going and kept the importance of family.
Is this the little girl I carried? Is this the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they?
When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday when they were small?
Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the days. Seedlings turn overnight to sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears. Now is the little boy a bridegroom. Now is the little girl a bride. Under the canopy I see them side by side.
Place the gold ring around her finger. Taste the sweet wine and break the glass. Soon the full circle will have come to pass.
Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the days. Seedlings turn overnight to sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. At this time, I would like to call Dr. David Verbitsky.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I know Rabbi Rosenberg for a long time, and we share the same, very similar concerns and pain related to Holocaust and many other issues. I came from the former Soviet Union approximately 24 years ago with my family, including my parents, who survive Holocaust just by chance. And I would like to share some very brief notes, remembrance of their survival. They lived in eastern Ukraine, in western Ukraine, which is now a critical point between Russia and Ukraine. Near big city and beautiful city, Port Odessa, near border with Romania. So this area was captured by Germans within weeks after they began attack, assault on Soviet Union in June 22nd, 1941. Part of their families lived in very small villages, remote villages, and they were representative of very rare Jewish professions. They were peasants. Not many people know that there were some Jewish agricultural colony settlements in south of Ukraine. And approximately 50% of their families lived in these villages and worked as peasants. So as Rabbi Rosenberg described, communication was very poor. And Soviet government was not willing to share information about upcoming terror. They didn't want to make a mass exodus from areas where Jews mostly live in, with high concentration. So my father at that time was exactly 20-year-old, and he was a student of Odessa University. His father, my grandfather, was already drafted to Soviet army within a couple of weeks after beginning of the war in 1941. And the remain of his family, his mother and his 3 siblings, lived in this remote, small town, and they were hesitating what to do. My father, who was 19-year-old, made approximately 100 miles from Odessa to this remote town, mostly walking, sometimes using cars, trucks, and so on, and he pushed them out of this town in the last day, literally last day. Next day, roads were cut, and any escape would be impossible. So he, in his 19-year-old, he saved 3 families. His own mother and 3 siblings, and also 2 sisters of his father with their families, total approximately 9 people, and now there are more than 100 descendants of these people who live in 3 continents. And then he made his way back to Odessa, and he entered Odessa on his 20th birthday in the very early morning. And it was August 2nd, 1941. And women who were working in their gardens before dawn, full dawn, began crying when they saw him, because he was covered by dust and was not shaved. His clothes and shoes were broken. And then he joined his university and actually was drafted also to the army and fought Nazis for 1.5 years until he was heavily wounded on Caucasus by German artillery shell. He survived this wound and also coincided malaria, which gave a very high fever. And then he found his family, his mother and siblings in Central Asia. They made approximately 800 miles on a cart with 1 horse, this 9 people all together, to area which is now famous due to the struggle, to Donetsk area, and then they went by train to Central Asia. So this is one of the examples how people survived Holocaust. But my father blamed himself. He blamed himself because he didn't make another 20, 30 miles to save his grandparents, who lived in another small village near border between South Ukraine and Moldova. He sent notes to them and telegram to them, urging them to move immediately. They lived with their youngest son and his family, 4 children between 1 and 7 years old. And his uncle, Menachem, who was very kind, very diligent person, hardworking peasant, he responded that they were not communists, they didn't like communists, they were peasants, they were children of earth, as he said, and they refused to go. So they, next week after this area was occupied by Germans, they were kicked out of their house, moved to a kind of ghetto. It was not a real ghetto, but actually a death camp in Moldova, and they were just shut down within 1 week among a couple thousand other Jews. And then this place became a mass grave for 15,000 people from Ukraine, Moldova, and even Czechoslovakia. So my father kept their photo with his father, whose name was also David Verbitsky, the same as mine. I was named after him. And until the end of his life, he died here in New York City in 2000, actually, May 1st, 2000. So his anniversary is coming up in a few days, several days later. So this is distinguished stories of survival and obscure difference between survival and death. It was a matter of bravery, a matter of solidarity, a matter of vigilance, vigilance, understanding of situation, and also a matter of chance. And I would like also to say that Ukraine was probably the worst place in the Holocaust, and due to terrible relation of local people, Ukrainians, with Jews, which comes to early 17th century. But on the positive note, I would like to emphasize that there were different relationships with neighbors. For example, Jewish population in Romania, in neighborhood Romania, even increased during World War II, mostly due to refugees from Ukraine and Moldova who managed to escape. However, Romanians were pretty terrible with Jews in Ukraine, and actually they executed many Jews in Odessa. There were also good relationship in Bulgaria, for example, in Finland, and so on. So my conclusion on this is that solidarity internal within Jewish community and solidarity with neighbors is very important, and it determines fate sometimes of entire community. And if anybody thinks that this problem has been completely resolved in the United States, send these people to me. I will give them example from my own experience in the United States. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Verbitsky. And I think at this time, Assemblywoman Nancy Pinkin, you wanted to say?
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here today. But in response to Rabbi Rosenberg's comments about people that stayed or didn't stay, in my husband's family, people Some people did get out very early. On his grandfather's side, they left early. On his grandmother's, a little bit later. But others were not so lucky. But what is remarkable about New Jersey and New York is that there probably are more Holocaust survivors here than anywhere else. Therefore, understanding the Holocaust is not an abstract event, but part of the very fabric of our community. We must understand it to know who we are and where we're going. We must ensure that we never forget and that we do not repeat the past. We must work to eradicate genocide and violence among man, but it remains a very real threat. Events like this allow us to come together from different backgrounds and to bridge the barriers between us so that we can find a path for peace in the future generations. So tonight, we light the candles together not only to remember the victims, but as a sign of hope and resolve for all of those who survived, and as a sign of hope and a resolve for our future.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Thomas Lanke and the whole entire council, and we have council members here tonight, Council Vice President Michael Lombardi, Council Member Shaw, Councilman Gomez, and I'm Council President Rob Karabinchak. I want to thank you for inviting us here. Every year, Dr. Rosenberg always invites us, has always been gracious enough to let us speak. As Assemblywoman Ms. Pinkins says, you know, every year we come here and we reflect on history. And every year, as time goes on, memories get faded, people start to forget. Unfortunately, people pass away. The newer generations are out there, and the social media is different today than it was 10 years ago. Well, events like this, to have people remember, regardless of what religion you are, what race you are, what ethnicity you are, has to be told everywhere. It's not just our political people that should be looking out for us, but it's every single one of us as an individual, as a human being, to watch out and to ensure that this never happens anywhere in the world to any one group or anyone at all. And as long as I'm around, and I know this council and our mayor, we will always be here to support this congregation, Dr. Rosenberg, yourself, and the memories of the people who passed under this horrific Holocaust. With that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful words. At this time, I'd like to call up Eileen Adelstein for a reading on hatred, followed by Daryl Yoblik on a reading on resistance.
Hatred by Michael G. Kessler. I have lived a long and eventful life. 40 and a decade ago, I burst out loudly protesting my dramatic change in venue. A maniac leader of an angry nation in my youth caused a cataclysm on the continent, killing 6 million of my people. Hatred and wrath robbed me of home, parents, and 8,000 of my townspeople, drove me from country to country and from continent to continent, until, blessed, I came to this golden land. I remember well enraged mobs ransacking our property and screaming wildly, "Jews, get out, go to Palestine." So those who could left the cursed land and went to build their own home. They drained the swamps and watered the desert, built roads and raised crops, in one hand a shovel, in the other a gun. And thus they revived their ancient land. They fathered dreams and made them happen, and became a shining, thriving example of a mighty, prosperous nation. But angry mobs filled with ancient loathing of Jews are crying hoarsely again and again, "Jews, get out of Palestine!" And the continent where I was born and raised, and whose culture I imbibed and learned, are joining the cacophony of vile hatred against the very being of my people. False leaders of the mob, drunk with hatred, envy, and greed, prepare children with ancient rites for ghoulish sacrifice to the Moloch, to kill and maim without guilt or shame. They blame the Jew for killing a few, calling it a genocide, but barely murmur about the murder of 100,000 poisoned by gas. And people in high places in the lands of Beethoven, Hugo, and Locke deliberate and meet in committees, but do little to the world gone insane. Hatred, like termites, is chewing the pillars on which we stand and have proudly built our culture, freedom, and law. Beware, it may crumble as it's being eaten to the core.
Thank you, Eileen. You read that beautifully. Okay, now I'm going to ask my husband to come up and do a reading.
This is an essay written by Doreen Rappaport. The theme is resistance, and it's very apropos that the resistance can be applied to the time and place of the Holocaust. The Nazis forced the Jews to sell their businesses for a pittance and leave their homes for crowded ghettos in run-down neighborhoods where they lived 20 to a room without enough to eat. Starving and disease-ridden, the young formed secret networks to defy their enemy however possible. Long past curfew, children as young as 8 hurried through dark alleys, talking without talking, and pasted up posters urging resistance. Behind barbed wires and walls that blocked out sunlight, in ghetto workshops and labor camps, forced to work for the Germans, Jews stitched left sleeves into right sleeves, sewed pants pockets upside down, and stuck nails into the soles of army boots. They poured water into car batteries, removed filters from gas masks, reversed the firing pins in rifles and guns, and made tiny tears in parachute silks. They stole, smuggled, and captured rifles, bayonets, and knives, and trained for combat in underground bunkers. They planned uprisings they did not expect to win. When their uprisings failed, those who didn't die escaped to forests and swamps and villages high in the mountains to continue the battle. They slept outdoors in snow and rain, when lucky, in pigsties and barns and underground shelters. They begged and foraged for food from local people. When rebuffed, they threatened, stole, did without, or killed. They battled hunger and cold, and in many places, the hatred of their own countrymen. Outnumbered, outweaponed, in the dark of night, they wrapped their feet in rags and traipsed through forests and over mountains to kill collaborators and ambush the enemy. With their bare hands, they pulled down telephone poles and ripped out telegraph wires. They planted homemade bombs under bridges and granaries and communication systems. They removed bolts from train rails and laid dynamite under the tracks that had taken their loved ones to death. Then they waited and hoped for the explosion of light and sound that would mark their revenge.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to call on Alan Cooper again to enlighten us with some more songs.
So I'm going to do two songs. I'm going to finish with an old favorite, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav by Naomi Shemer. And if you don't know the words to that, I'm sure you can hum along with it. But before that, we'll sing La Minatzea. It's a song for the victor. And I think that's appropriate. Right now, we survived the Holocaust. We were victorious. We defeated the Nazis. And this song can be taken religiously or politically or any way you like, but you'll recognize it. למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. יקום אדוני יפוצו אויביו וינוסו מפניו משנאיו. למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. לא ינום ולא יישן שומע ישראל ישראל. לילה 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 למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. למנצח שמזמור הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ. Thank you. אבי הרים זלול כיין וריח אורנים יישא ברוח הרעפיים עם כל פעמונים ובתדהמת אילן ואבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה חומה. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני אימו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני אימו. איכה יבשו בורות המים כיכר השוק ריקה ואין פוקדת הר הבית בעיר העתיקה ובמערות שבסלע מייללות רוחות ואין יורד אל ים המלח בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני אימו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני אימו. אך בבוא היום לשיר לך ולך לקשור כתרים קטונתי מזעיר בנייך ומאהרון המשוררים כי שמך צורבת השפתיים ושיקת שרף אם אשכח את ירושלים, אשר כולך זהב. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כאילו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כאילו. חזרנו את בוא המים, השוק ולכיכר, שורי קוראת הבית בעיר העתיקה. ובמערות ראשי בסלח, אלפי שמשות זורחות, נשוב נרד אל ים המלח, בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כאילו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כאילו.
Songs. Okay, Fred, we're going to do the candle lighting ceremony. And the first candle goes to Rabbi Bernhard Rosenberg and Dr. David Verbitsky. No, please wait up here, stand up here. The next candle goes to Nathan Weintraub. Dr. Verbitsky, please wait up here. Rachel, interesting. Cindy Raymond. Mario Katz and Marta Martinez.
We're lighting the candles in remembrance of the 6 million Jews that perished. We have children of Holocaust survivors that are taking part.
Children and grandchildren. And me.
This evening is going to be on Edison Cable, and also getting pictures into the newspapers. Eddie, thank you especially for coming.
Yes, the candles tonight were for parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles. Okay, and now Rabbi, give the memorial prayer, followed by the college.
I'm going to ask everyone to please rise. I'm going to ask President and past presidents, please come up, take out Torah. And our ritual director, please come up. Presidents, past presidents, and our ritual director, please take out a Torah. This is the memorial prayer for those who are no longer alive. Is everyone up here? One of the major reasons why you see me, see some of my students just came in, why I take such a great interest in being involved with people of all faiths is because of how I grew up, and I just want to share this with you. I told you my family had no money, we were poor. My mother had to work in a coat factory. My dad was in the meat business. And I had to be somewhere. And it was interesting that most of the Holocaust survivors' children ended up being in a church. In a church. So I grew up not in a nursery school, but in a church with nuns and fathers, and Christmas was the best. They had a guy on a horse and presents. So I learned a long time ago that my view of the world is a bit different than everybody else's. I don't consider us the chosen people, we're the choosing people. I think we have to be here for each other throughout the world. My friend Frank is here. We thank him for the candles, but more so, thank him for all the kindness that Crayville Funeral Home has done for our congregation. But one more secret, when Frank had a heart attack and was in the hospital at Robert Wood, this crazy rabbi was running around the floor screaming and yelling, "Where's his doctor?" Right? And that may have gotten him here. So my adopted brother. Shochen b'maramim hamatzei menucha al kanafei hashkina b'malos kadoshim utarim Kazarakim asim es nishmas hayusharim v'hayusharos Shahalachol yalamam Bavur shononorim tzedakah biad azakares nishposechem begad edem tei minachosam Lachem b'harachamim hatreicham b'seisek kanafechel yalamim v'yitzarar b'tzrachayim es nishposechem Adonai hu anakolasam v'yinoach mishkma mishkavam v'namar Amen. Mourner's Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shmei rabbah Yalma divrach Yerusei v'yamlech malchusei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayerecho b'Yisrael b'agalav v'zman kariv yimru amen Yahei shmei rabbah v'arach v'yolam l'mei amaya Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yisbar v'yisramam v'yisnasei v'yisadar v'yisalev v'yisalau shmei d'kodisha b'reichu Leila minko b'chasa v'shirasa tush b'chasa v'nechmasa Dam Yiram Yalma v'yimru amen Hey Shlama Rabba min Shemaya Chayim Naleno v'yako Yisrael v'yimru amen Ose Shalom b'mramav hu yase Shalom Aleinu v'yako Yisrael v'yimru amen. We now return the Torahs. I'd like to remark that in my congregation, as long as I'm alive, we will conclude with Hatikvah, and no one will walk out if I'm here doing the Hatikvah. I can promise you that. By the way, sunrise, sunset was my mother's favorite. So thank you. You did. And thank you so much for being with us. Please join us. Just turn around. Allah Gali. Thank you so much, Gali.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening.